is not acceptable. It is against international law, which is something that they have been doing. And every time they are called for to give an account of that and do investigations and so on, the investigations go halfway, and you don't hear about it after a while. Nothing comes out of those investigations. And then you cannot ask the one who is accused of a crime to investigate that crime. It is not right. So every time Israel investigates, and then the matter is hushed up and so on. So this time she is killed, but she is killed in a very brutal way. She is covering clashes, what they call clashes between Palestinians and Israelis and so on. And then a bullet hits her. Where does it hit her? Well, she has on the helmet, the press helmet covering, and then the rest of her body is also shielded with the huge sign press. So everybody knows that this is press. They should not be harmed. They are allowed to be there in those dangerous situations, and they should be able to cover what is happening there. They should not be attacked, they should not be killed, and so on. But she was shot where? Right in the head. This part that is open, only this part that is open, that part the bullet reaches. And then the Israelis started to say that it is the Palestinians who did that, maybe by accident, because they were firing. Afterwards, it became clear that no Palestinians were in that area firing. Where the Palestinians were, it was impossible for any bullet to have reached where Shereen was. So then they changed their tune and they started to say that, yes, it could be an Israeli soldier, but we don't know. It could still be a Palestinian bullet, and the whole thing is obscure, and so on. And Israel, a couple of times they changed their tune. Now, a person who was very close to Shereen, I think she works with Jazaira also, probably her niece. And she says that she was very close to her aunt. When she was shot and she was killed, I think maybe after they picked her up on the spot and so on, she goes probably to the hospital. Now she is saying this. She goes to the hospital to see the body, and she tries to lift up the head of the head, Shereen's head, and she finds that there is no skull there. Just imagine that. The bullet that went into her head. It is like those what you call it, cluster bombs and so on, something like that. It hits and it explodes on impact, and the skull was totally demolished. Her skull was demolished. So she goes there, tries to pick up the head, and she can't. There is no skull. So what are they going to say about that? That is a deliberate bullet. That could not have come from a stray bullet from Palestinians. That could not. That had to be a sharpshooter, a marksman, targeting her. And it hit the spot that was open, the face that was open. And then the kind of bullet ensures that she is dead. So that definitely is an assassination. Anyhow, let them go ahead and investigate. What people are calling for all over the world, what they are calling for is a thorough investigation, which not from the Israelis. The Israelis have been asking the Palestinians, and so let us share in this investigation and so on. But how can the accused investigate themselves? It should be independent investigators who come there and examine the whole situation. And everybody is calling for that. Of course, the Israelis are going to say that they agree with that. There should be an investigation and so on. but they want to be involved in that investigation. And as I said in the khutbah, all of this was just background to what I have to say. Because out of this came some discussions among Muslims, Palestinians all over the Arab world, and scholars made their their input into this discussion. What is this discussion about? Is whether you can say Rahimakumullah for a non-Muslim, because Shereen is not a Muslim, was not a Muslim. She was a Christian, Palestinian. Before we talk about that, this matter perhaps makes it much clearer than before that it is not a fight between the Jews and the Muslims. This is a situation between Palestinians and Israel. But of course, we know it is more than that, because all Muslims have a share in that part of the world. Al-Quds belongs to all Muslims, and Masjid al-Aqsa belongs to all Muslims. It is, the third of the holy places for Muslims. So whatever happens there affects us, and that is why we are talking about it here. It's not because it concerns Palestinians who are our Muslim brothers, right? But we ourselves are affected by whatever goes on there. So that is the first thing. And they say, the news said, and many Christian sources as well as Muslim sources are saying that her death united the Christian groups. There are various Christian groups or denominations right there in Palestine. Right? Orthodox, Roman Catholics, and so on and so forth. A number of different denominations are there. And they're not friendly with each other, by the way. They're not friendly with each other. But this is something that united all of them, and all of in all of the churches. At the time of our funeral, the bells were tolling and so on. So they're saying that this is something good that has happened among Christians for them all to be united. And what is happening also is that it is becoming more clear to the rest of the world that it is not only Muslims who are affected there. When they talk about Palestinians, most people have in their mind Muslims, right? Muslims who are living there. It's not only them, it is Christians also who are suffering. So this is becoming clearer through this. The other thing they said is that this has united Palestinians, both Muslims and Christians. It has united them. What happened at the funeral was another atrocity that was committed by Israel. The Israeli police, all in riot gear, from head to toe in riot gear, having their batons in their hands, attacked the mourners, attacked the Palestinians who came there to participate in the funeral, and to fetch the buyer. And they came and they attacked the bearers and the buyer, the pallbearers, as they say, right? They came and they even attacked them. And they almost dropped it. They almost dropped the body or the casket. And they had to rush back into the hospital. They were coming out of the hospital, holding it with their hands, and they had to rush back into the hospital. And the only way that the Israeli police allowed them to pass was with a hearse. The body had to be put in a hearse, car that is, and then that was able to go through. But all over was blocked. All the streets were blocked, and the pedestrians were not able to follow. The people who wanted to follow, who wanted to actually carry the casket and so on, they were not able to do that. And they could not even follow the hearse to the church where it was going. Also, the Muslims, this was after Salat al-Jum'ah, and this was late in Friday evening. And Muslims wanted to come from, after praying Salat al-Jum'ah in Masjid al-Aqsa, they wanted to come there to the church to participate in the funeral, and the place was blocked, and they could not come. So there are calls now to investigate that also. The action of the police, and everybody all over the world is condemning that. Even today something came from the Vatican and so on, right? Everybody is condemning that. But this question, a lot of Muslims maybe without really thinking that she's Christian or whatever, they started to say things like, may Allah forgive her, may Allah have mercy upon her, and so on. And the question is whether we can say those things for a non-Muslim who passes away. And the understanding that perhaps the majority of Muslims have in their minds is yes. No, you cannot do that. It is forbidden to do that. But where is it forbidden? In Surah At-Tawbah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ما كان للنبي والمؤمنين والذين آمنوا أن يستغفروا للمشركين. It is not right for the Prophet and the believers to make istighfar for the mushrikeen after it has become clear to them that أنهم من أصحاب النار, that they أصحاب الجحيم, that they are going into hellfire. After that, when does it become clear that this is so? Is if they die in a state of disbelief. Then it becomes clear to us that they are occupants of hellfire. So once they die in a state of kufr, we cannot make istighfar for them. But the word that is used is istighfar. Istighfar. So there are scholars who derive from that that we cannot make istighfar for them. But this does not prohibit us from doing istirham for them, asking Allah's mercy for them. Two different things. Is mercy the same as forgiveness? They're not. The two are not the same. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about himself as being Ghafur and Rahim. Ghafur and Rahim. The two attributes coming together, which means that they are different. The two attributes together, if they were the same, then why mention the two together? The two are different, Ghafur and Rahim. So istighfar and istirham are two different things. And the scholars who say, they say, okay, don't make istighfar because that is prohibited, that is clearly prohibited. However, there is no prohibition against making istirham or asking for the mercy of Allah for a disbeliever who passed away, because there is no prohibition of it, and of course the two are different. And the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is vast. In this world, in this life, everybody gets a taste of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and perhaps even in the hereafter for some of the disbelievers. For Abu Talib, for example, he died as a disbeliever, but he will be in the shallowest part of hellfire. Because of what? Because of the shafa'ah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for him. So if a disbeliever cannot benefit from any of our du'as and so on, then that would not have happened, right? But Abu Talib will be the shallowest part of hellfire. However, there are other dalil also that comes in the Sunnah that the scholars are put forward. But there are also, we have to accept and we have to admit, that the scholars who are very strong on the other side, saying that no kind of dua, whether istighfar or istirham, should be done for a non-Muslim who passes away. That is what we are prohibited from that. Although there is no clear-cut evidence of that part of it, there is clear-cut evidence Quran concerning the istighfar. But this is what the numbers say. I saw, online there's a lot of discussion, and many scholars have been making their input into this discussion. One of them has been actually quoting from Shafi'i books, from the books of Shafi'i, the Shafi'i school of thought, saying that there are Shafi'i scholars who are saying nothing is wrong with making istighfar for a non-Muslim who passes away, even, right? Not just istirham, but istighfar for a non-Muslim who passes away. Maybe they consider that what the Prophet was prohibited from was special, there were special circumstances or whatever. However, they explain that. So they're probably thinking that this is not to be applied indiscriminately for everyone. There will be circumstances where it may be permissible, and that's what at least some of the Shafi'i scholars are saying. So there is this kind of very rich discussion among scholars of the past and scholars of the various madhahib and so on, that we have some in favor of a particular matter, some against it, and so on. And then we have, what do we do with this? You can follow your madhab, whatever madhab you are following, you can follow that. But I would say that we look at our circumstances and the kind of interaction that we have with non-Muslims in these days, especially perhaps Christians in Palestine. There's a newsletter, sort of, an email that I receive every single week from a Christian scientist in Palestine, Palestinian Christian scientist. He does scientific research, he travels, he goes places in conferences and some scientific conferences, trying to develop Palestine. But there is so much, so much suffering of the Palestinians, so much repression and suppression of them from the Israelis and so on. It's very, very difficult for a scientist to do his task in a proper way there. All of the blocks, they're faced with and so on. So he constantly talks about that. He talks about his scientific work, and he talks about that also. And he talks about the hypocrisy of the Muslim nations. And the Muslim rulers, the hypocrisy of the Muslim rulers, especially concerning that issue, right? We have a lot of supporters from among non-Muslims concerning this issue, and it is growing and growing. The BDS movement, supported by a lot of non-Muslims now. We constantly, keep hearing about this Ben and Jerry situation. Even today, there is some article concerning that. Right? The Ben and Jerry situation, that is when they decided to pull out of some places, right, in that area. And well, we want and we need the support of them. And today, our clergy, Interfaith Clergy Association, had their regular, monthly meeting. And alhamdulillah, I was able to raise it with them. Of course, there are Jews in that gathering also. But I was able to raise it with them and raise all of the issues. I said, at least the thing, what we can demand from the international community is that there be an impartial investigation into what has happened there with this journalist. Killing a journalist is a crime. The way it was done there needs to be investigated properly. You cannot have the Israelis investigating themselves. And the funeral, what took place at the funeral, also needs to be investigated. So I just wanted to present that to you. Last week I started a different topic, but later on we'll continue with that, inshallah. Maybe there are questions. I don't want to keep you back, but anyhow, this is a thing that we'll continue to discuss. Not necessarily in this forum, but among ourselves we can continue with that. Assalamu alaikum.